How many? How many? How many? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. What did I get up to?
Wandavision!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of How Many, the only podcast on the internet that counts. I am one of your hosts, and joining me are my fellow Avengers. We have Gary, Scott, Bob, and Junior. We thought we would kind of mix up the format a little bit. We are all big fans of the Marvel Universe. We have done multiple episodes dedicated to the Marvel Universe, and all of us watched WandaVision. So tonight we are going to talk a little WandaVision, but Junior, you did come up with a twist where we could do our How Many anyway.
Yeah, so I thought, considering the way that WandaVision was formatted and the different sitcoms kind of attaching itself to the first 4 episodes, I thought maybe we could go through that exercise of what sitcom would we attach if we were in the middle of the WandaVision situation. The first 4 episodes of our season, 1 sitcom per decade, as long as the sitcom debuted in that decade. I did also say that we could include animated shows.
I think the odds are us having more than 1 sitcom is going to be pretty odd. How about we spin it, which decade do we have the most alike? For example, like will all 5 of us pick a show from the 80s?
I'm good with that option. So we'll just keep track of how many different decades each one of us picks that overlap. That will be our how many number. So you want to throw some guesses out there?
So I'm going to start and I'm going to pick 4. We will end up doing 4 shows in the same decade.
All right, Bob?
I'll say 3.
Gary?
5.
Scott, you can do 2 or 6.
I'll go 1.
And I will go 6. All right. So before we get into the actual selections, what did you think of the show? What did you think of the finale?
I really love this. I think they were showing the various stages of grief, denial, anger. I loved the sitcom premise. I know that there was a little bit of noise after the first 2. There was a lot of on the internet, this is crap. I don't understand what we're doing. But I love how they started out doing almost 100% sitcom homages to slowly, and then by the end, this was a pretty mini Marvel Universe film. I think the acting has been amazing. Our 2 leads were wonderful. I think Elizabeth Olsen has just rocked it out of the park. I give it easy 9 out of 10 books of damned.
I think this one will end up getting some Emmy and some Golden Globe nominations. There is enough good buzz around it to where it will be able to overcome the comic book curse and be able to actually get some awards. Bob, what did you think of it?
I liked it. It finished pretty strong. I'm with Jesse, or at least what he was talking about. Those first 2 episodes and being just almost entirely sitcom homages and not knowing where it's going. How different would people's perception have been if they opened the series with the scene of their apartment getting bombed, them, showing her watching the DVDs with her family and stuff like that, kind of had a really good explanation for everything. Now, I understand part of the reason is they wanted it to be a reveal, but if they would have put that up front, would have made a little more sense from the get-go. But I liked it. Catherine Hahn was really good.
And I killed Sparky, too.
She's always good in everything.
Yeah.
Bad Moms and Parks
Step
and Rec.
Brothers.
She was really funny there. Yeah, Step Brothers.
One of the best things I think about it was the way they were able to repurpose semi-spare other Marvel characters like Jimmy Woo and Kat Dennings' character, and these people that had been in like 1 or 2 Marvel movies and they were like 30th on the cast list.
Jimmy Woo was greatness, as was Kat Dennings. I do think that someone who's not watching this every week binged it may like that better. Because, with the 4th episode, and where you kind of give the whole background, where you're only 2 hours into your binge at that point.
Yeah, you're right. I think that made it a lot harder, the fact that they just released those 2 episodes without the binge ability, so you're stuck.
To me, I felt a lot of the same sentiments that you were talking about, Jesse. The first 2 episodes were really almost kind of a bear to get through for me. I felt they were cheesy. I was like, what is going on? It wasn't until they hit hit the 70s and 80s versions that I started to embrace it in a little bit more. And I think that's probably because they were playing more to what I enjoyed as a kid. It was easier for me to embrace it at that point. They started mixing in more action. The reveal of bringing the X-Men version of Quicksilver, I thought really added an extra element to it.
Long lost bro, get to squeeze his stinking sister to death or what?
She recast Pietro?
The finale you were talking about where Agatha Harkness is fighting Wanda, that whole last 2 episodes felt like a movie production.
See, and because I grew up watching Dick Van Dyke Show and Bewitched on syndicated, I loved that. I had a couple problems with, like, okay, Wanda has magic. She should be able to whip up a dinner during the first episode. But I realized that's the premise of this 50s sitcom, right? The guy,
I will say, even though the humor was cheesy in that first episode, the boss choking on the eggs, I thought was shake laugh, and Vision having to go in and pull the stuck food out of his trachea, especially when that 70s show mom kept yelling at Wanda, "Stop it, stop it."
Oh, Arthur, stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Well, and see, that was the first time they broke character, right? And so that was the little bitty sign that something else was going on. The other thing that I think is really, really cool about this is the idea that if you look, the sets, the staircases was the same place, the fireplace was the same place. And even they said there was a Glamour magazine that Wanda was reading in the first episode. That Glamour magazine was there at every season, even down to the theme songs fitting each time were pretty genius.
The theme songs, they had a segment about it in there where it's this married couple that was doing them, and they were studying a lot of the older shows to get the format of the piano that they were going to use for each one. It was kind of fascinating.
We often talk to them before we hit each decade, at least for a half hour. So maybe we did like the 50s and the 60s on the same call and said, well, we know what the 50s is. 60s, let's talk about it. All agreed that Bewitched in particular was a big thing. But we also looked at like the James Bond movies. We looked at Burt Bacharach. We looked at, what was going on in the pop culture of that time.
The other thing about that behind the scenes that was interesting was the guy who directed all the episodes had been a child actor on 80s sitcoms. So he was very honed in on the whole sitcom angle of it. And they actually had live studio audience that they brought in when they recorded those to really authenticate the sitcom environment.
What I didn't know, that director had directed 4 or 5 episodes of Psych that were all parodies of TV shows. So this was right in his wheelhouse. Gary, we haven't given you a chance to talk.
Yeah, 5 minutes left in the show, Gary. What do you think?
I'm like a Jesse and Junior combo platter. I hated with a white hot passion the first 2 episodes so much that it took me until last week to actually go back and do this series. It was so bad. And I get it. I watched all of it. If you only make me grade the last 6 episodes, I loved it. It was absolutely fantastic. And I understand the role that the first couple of episodes played in setting up what was going on in Wanda's head and all of it. I get it. Like Bob said, if they had fed me something a little bit up front, it didn't even have to be the explosion of her parents' place and everything when they were kids. It probably wouldn't have been so bad. And there were little things like when that 70s show mom broke character that you're like, okay, well, I mean, obviously there's something going on, and obviously Vision's dead. So now I will say this, the Rambo character, I like her a lot. She's very, very cool. I think she's going to get her own deal now, and I can't wait for that unless it starts off with 3 really bad episodes.
Well, she is supposed to show up in Captain Marvel, and, we got to see her with her powers, and she was really sharp.
But, Jesse, to stick with your theme, since nobody else is going to, it's a 5 out of 6 on the hexagon scale.
Okay, so, Scott, you got into this late, and you said, okay, I'm going to, binge this so that I can join you guys on the talk.
Okay, so here I am. I have not seen the ending, but that's okay. Spoilers don't bother me. I know that people didn't like the first 2 episodes. And my first thought was, okay, how many people didn't come back? My thought about it was, I thought it was genius. It had sort of a Matrix feel. I felt like, okay, she's in another world. She's seeing another reality. the whole time. And there were little blips here and there.
Wanda. Who's doing this to you, Wanda?
I did get that it was probably something that it was stages of grief, because I was confused at the beginning. It's like, wait a minute, isn't he dead? So I was confused, but then I started thinking, okay, they're trying to tell me something here.
I'm glad that my creative people are swinging for the fences. Even if you have the chance of someone like yourself going, I hated it. I think they took a lot of creative chances. You ended up, okay, with the last 6.
And then that's why I gave it the 5 out of 6, right? Because overall, I did enjoy it. Their problem is there are so many options and so many things that I can watch that when you lose me, now I came back around because we're going to do this for the show. Like Scott said, I don't watch it and I hated it. And then my friends go, oh, but you didn't see this and this and this. Oh, you got to go back, dude. Trust me, it gets better. I hear that from these two a lot. It never does. I'm sure a lot of people did come back around to it for that reason. And all I'm saying is, I think they could have done it in a way that wouldn't have lost me.
Someone suggested they would have served better if they released the first 3 at one time. You know, because at the end, you kind of, okay, they're breaking character and something's going on. And then maybe cut to the TV screen and you see Darcy and Jimmy Woo watching it, and that'd be the end of 3.
Anything like that would have probably been. I didn't know where the break was going to be. I didn't have it in me to stomach another bad one.
So I watched on the DC Universe Doom Patrol's first season and enjoyed it. And when I watched the first episode of the second season, I liked no characters, and I never finished the second season. Like, I just don't care. There's too many other things for me to watch if I can't find someone to cheer for.
Being a sitcom watcher for years, the episodes that I always hated the most was when they would do a parody of a different show. And let's get out the photo album and look at photos and relive things from the past episodes. That's the worst that you can do. And I think sometimes in movies or in TV shows, I think of Firefly, for instance, is that sometimes you have to have the buildup. It doesn't always start with a bang, and when you think of Firefly, how the network, they didn't like the first episode. And they said, no, we're going to start with the third episode because the third episode starts with a bang. I enjoyed it, and I'm interested to see how it ends.
One of the nice things I thought is Emma Caulfield, who was Anya on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they cast her specifically as a red herring. And then the other big controversy, right? The lead actor,
Paul Bettany.
Yeah, Paul Bettany. He had said, oh man, we had such a guest star that I've always wanted to act with.
Always wanted to work with him.
Yeah, and it turned, he was joking. But, everyone expected Cumberbatch to show up or Nick Fury to show up. Some people were disappointed about what's going on.
All we got was a female Skrull.
I don't think there's supposed to be a season 2 because this apparently transitions into this Doctor Strange sequel.
Yes. Originally, timeline pre-COVID, this should have gone, and then like a month later, the Doctor Strange movie would have been in the theater.
There's definitely more story there if they want there to be. I don't know if it'll end up being a movie or series or what.
And I think one of the things that's interesting about Agnes is she kept going back and forth between, yes, I'm trying to protect the world, and no, I want your power. So back and forth. All right, who wants to go first about their sitcom choices?
I'll go. Like I mentioned before, I really didn't start paying attention to sitcoms until probably the 70s sitcoms that I watched in syndication early 80s. So starting with the 70s for me, I had some honorable mentions that I thought about putting in this slot. The Jeffersons is definitely one that I loved.
Vision do the George Jefferson.
Yeah, it would have been awesome to see Vision with the George Jefferson, Sherman Hemsley haircut strutting into his house.
Yes.
I also thought about Sanford and Son. Maybe Vision could have been coming to join you.
Oh. You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey. Oh.
Love Sanford and Son growing up, but the sitcom I went with was The Greatness of Good Times. I don't know how I would necessarily incorporate that into the way WandaVision was set up, but considering that I probably watched that sitcom in reruns multiple courses through the entire series, I went ahead and made that one my 70s choice.
You just wanted to see Wanda go, damn, damn, damn.
Damn, damn, damn.
And I want a rework of that theme song. All right, Good Times. I like that.
Jimmy Woo could have been Dynamite.
You got the number right, because you are talking to kid a dynamite.
So the next decade, pretty much mine went in linear order. I went with 80s here. A couple of my honorable mentions. I used to love Night Court. John Larroquette I thought was really funny. The Greatness of Marquis Post. Another honorable mention, just because I watched it all the time, even though it's probably more of a kid show than anything. I loved Alf. Alf to me was greatness. And considering it's an alien show, I guess you could kind of work that into WandaVision. So my 80s sitcom choice was The Greatness of the Bundys, Married with Children. Such greatness. So I could not take Al Bundy and Peg Bundy and the Greatness of Grandmaster B off of my list.
You envision with his hand down his pants.
Yeah, at the shoe store with the no ma'am sign. So that's my 80s pick. For 90s, now it's weird when I think of 90s, all of my selections in my head were all animated. I think that was the boom of the animated sitcom, and that's why I kind of pushed for animated shows to be included. So my honorable mentions here, King of the Hill. Obviously, Texas humor really appeals to me, but I don't know how we would have worked that in. Maybe Wanda could have been Suge, and Vision could have been Dale Gribble coming in with a Boogabago.
Jimmy Redcorn.
Another honorable mention, obviously, everybody knows I'm a Seth MacFarlane fanboy, so obviously Family Guy needed to work its way in here. I guess Stewie and Brian could have been WandaVision.
Why do you keep straying away from just the mother and the father and the shows being Wanda and Vision?
I'm thinking outside the box here. And my 90s pick is going to be way outside the box. Another animated show. And I guess Beavis could have been Wanda and Butthead could have been Vision. The Greatness of Beavis and Butthead. I guess Jimmy Woo could have been Stuart, and Daria could have been Marcy. Daria Marcy.
You said Hex.
For the
Agnes
2000s.
would have been Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson. For 2000s, my honorable mentions here. I thought about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's more of an ensemble cast, but I'm sure we could have worked a way for Wanda and Vision to be a part of that. I also thought about The Office. The Office was actually, I think, part of their 2000s compilation that they were trying to put together. All of the, talking to a cameraman, and that ended up being funny later when we find out that, spoiler alert, Agatha was the cameraman.
I can't fix it.
Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?
What? You're not supposed to talk.
But the one I went with, and I don't even know how this would work into the WandaVision premise, The Greatness of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's Larry.
Vision has to be Larry.
Yeah, I guess Vision has to be Larry. They definitely have the right haircut for it.
Yeah, because Wanda'd be Cheryl, right? That's it.
And Cheryl would be Wanda, yeah. And I guess Agatha Harkness could have been Susie.
Oh, yeah. That actually would be Shayclef.
Both of you, because I've had it, you four-eyed and you fat piece of Get me the head!
So 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000 were my decades. Jesse, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. I didn't have a lot of honorable mentions. I thought about, for the 60s, Batman series with Wanda and them, all the different characters, them being Avengers and set in the DC universe would be interesting. Also thought of the Addams Family and Munsters. We could have had a lot of fun with that. But I end up thinking Get Smart. Would be great because it was the spoof of all the James Bond films and all the spies. You've got the great Maxwell Smart and Agent 99. That could have been Wanda and the Vision. I think they could have had a lot of fun with that. So
yeah, that's a good one.
Then the 70s, this would be a stretch too, but the greatness of Barney Miller. right? I mean, I love the Partridge Family, and I kind of was hoping they would do that. But I just think of that few scenes we got when the Vision was at work. I'm just seeing with all the characters playing the Barney Miller characters.
Fish.
Fish and
Wojo.
Wojo. Like, it's just like it sounds. Yeah.
And one of the greatest theme songs.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And Ron Glass, speaking of Firefly, just recently passed a few years ago, but he was great in that and then great in Firefly. Then I skipped the 80s and the 90s, I did Sports Night.
What was the name of the butler on Soap?
Bentley.
No.
Binford.
No.
You're talking about the butler on Soap?
Yeah, they spun him off onto his own show.
It's not Bentley.
Benson. The guy's name was Benson.
No, that's not it.
No, that's not it. Sports Night, Tuesdays this fall on ABC.
I love Aaron Sorkin. And just once again, it would have been tough for them to ride that rapid dialogue. But if they did, and all the characters set in the ESPN type news show, would have been a lot of fun to see. I go back to Get Smart, having to do all the secret agent stuff, Barney Miller having all the weird crooks that came in, and then Sports Night, them just talking about that. I would love to see that dialogue.
Who would you have cast for the Cut Man?
Oh, yes. Truly one of the great episodes.
Cutman!
Hello, Casey. I'm right here at ringside at Bally's, where the breakfast buffet is $3.95, the slots are loose, and the showgirls are fantastic.
For the 2000s, just for the shtick of How I Met Your Mother. That is a sitcom I loved. I hated the ending, like a lot of people did. They executed the ending poorly. But all the shtick, the slap belts, and every time they're talking about smoking pot, they talk about eating a Severine sandwich, and just all the different things that they did. Major General.
It's been a major pleasure. Major pleasure.
So I think those would be a 4. If I was in the writer room, I could have a lot of fun writing those episodes.
That would have been a fun one to have fake Pietro as Barney.
Suit up.
Okay, meet me at the bar in 15 minutes and suit up.
So those are my picks.
All right, Bob.
The ones I'm going to pick, I'll do 50s, because to me, I Love Lucy was so obvious. That would have been so perfect. Agatha as Ethel and the whole neighbor bit, that would have been so perfect. And I need Wanda and Agatha at the conveyor belt with the candy.
And you wanted Vision as Ricky Ricardo playing the drums?
Yes.
Can't I go to the club, Ricky?
Hey, Ricky! You're always playing at the club. You'll never let me go. I'm begging and I'm pleading, but you always tell me no. Oh, please, honey, please, let me be in your show, Ricky.
60s. Now, this one definitely would have worked. I Dream of Jeannie. Have her be Jeannie and him be Major Nelson.
Yes.
That would have been awesome.
I love that one.
Now, I did feel like the 60s version was kind of a mix of I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. Like it was kind of the same.
I see what Bob's saying because I thought about the same thing. It's not always a direct reference. So they used theme elements from I Dream of Jeannie. That was one of the things that they used. However, he wants to literally see Vision as Nelson.
Yeah,
Yes.
the roles.
And Wanda as Jeannie.
Now, the 70s, I'll use this as an honorable mention, and it may seem kind of weird, but I thought Bob Newhart would have been good because it was a psychiatrist office, and they would have been able to work through a lot of the therapy stuff.
I didn't mention it, but I discussed that a lot. That's really a good one.
I would have got a kick out of Agatha as a Marsha Wallace receptionist character. So 80s is one of them, and I was like Junior, Married with Children. Absolutely, that seemed like a perfect fit. And then the 90s, I'll count this one. And the only reason I have this on the list is because I really want to see Vision.
Home Improvement?
Agatha could have been Wilson, like looking over the fence.
Agatha could be the girl that's at the TV show. The
the
Tool Time
Binford-
girl.
Yeah, the
Nick,
Tool Time
the
girl. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess I've got 4 between 50s, 60s, 80s, and 90s, but the other 2 I did for honorable mention. For the 2000s, I did Arrested Development.
I thought about Arrested Development. If I had more honorable mentions, that probably would have been on there.
And then also in Junior's vein, as far as the animated series with the teens, I thought about maybe Bob's Burgers. It would have been an interesting angle on it.
I like that. So you picked I Love Lucy, I Dream of Jeannie, Married with Children, Home Improvement.
Yeah, let's go with those 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
very nice. Scott, how about you?
My 2 favorite from the 50s were Leave It to Beaver and Dobie Gillis.
Yeah, I really strongly thought about Leave It to Beaver.
I thought of Leave It to Beaver a lot too. Yes.
I thought about that too. The only reason I left them off my list is because I felt like you put the kids in too early.
That's probably right.
But it was a perfect fit because it was 2 sons.
From the 60s, I had Dick Van Dyke, which they obviously used, and the Flintstones. I thought, now that would have been entertaining.
That would have been very fun.
Yeah, that would have been good.
But I
Agatha
also-
could have been Betty.
Then I thought, okay, Andy Griffith for the family. But then I thought, which show did I really watch every episode of in the 60s? And it was F Troop. But
What do you have against Troop?
for me, what would have been awesome would be Gilligan's Island.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship.
I
Gilligan's
thought of
Island
that,
from
and
the
that
60s.
is, I'm so glad you picked that. Yes.
That would have been greatness.
Now, for Gilligan's Island, would Wanda have been Ginger or Mary Ann?
That's the question, isn't it?
Or would they have done, she would have been the skipper and Vision would have been Gilligan.
Or Mr. and Mrs. Howell?
Oh, yes.
So from the 70s, obviously the Brady Bunch, probably my favorite show from the 70s. I also threw out Partridge Family because we always watched Brady Bunch. Partridge Family was the 1-2 punch on Friday night. And I threw out also the Bob Newhart show. That show was genius writing from beginning to end.
I remember Emily is talking to him like, you're watching football again? He goes, yeah, it's called Monday Night Football. It's going to be on every Monday night.
I'd have to pick, though, my show for the 70s would be the Brady Bunch.
Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 very lovely girls.
That was the most awesome achievement in television history as far as I'm concerned.
One, Scott, that we didn't think of that might have been a good fit also is All in the Family. Can you imagine Edith and Archie?
I considered that one.
You realize Gary hasn't done his list yet.
Spoiler!
There's Bob sitting over going, you know what we didn't think of?
My 80s pick, this was my lock. And then I went back and I was looking at the rules, and he said it had to start in the decade. And this show, it didn't start in that decade, but it had its biggest run then, was WKRP in Cincinnati. So I went with Married with Children because I did not watch sitcoms.
Everybody's
in
on the
80s.
same Married with Children wavelength.
Wow. Okay.
WKRP, very similar to Barney Miller in that office environment.
Yes.
I guess Vision could have been Johnny Fever.
And as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
My 90s show, I'll just make it short and sweet. There's only 2 shows I watched, sitcoms in the 90s, Seinfeld and Frasier, and I'm going with Frasier.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling. Toss salads and scrambled eggs. Quite stylish. And
That's a
maybe I
solid
seem a
pick.
bit
Yeah.
that
So
would've been
Frasier and Niles would be Wanda and
Yeah.
Vision.
The 2000s, The Office. Again, that's the only show I watched.
Yeah.
And the teens, if I didn't say LA to Vegas, then I would.
There you go. Yes.
Shameless plug.
So my shows were Gilligan's Island, Brady Bunch, Married with Children, and Frasier.
All right,
Good.
so
Very
60s,
nice.
70s, 80s, 90s.
Good. Very nice. All right, Gary, bring us home.
Okay, I'll pick my 4 as I go. I did start with the 50s. I'm not going to count that decade, but the 50s that I did, I would like to see them in Honeymooners.
Ooh,
Ah.
It would have
nice.
been fun.
That is a
To the moon,
very-
Wanda.
One of these days, pow, right in the kiss. Bang, soon. I'm going to the moon.
That's a
That I
great
thought would be
pick.
really funny is him telling her to the moon because he's Vision. And
Yes, exactly.
I also thought about Ozzie and Harriet and George Burns and Grace Allen.
Yes.
Also in that time era.
Oh, they would have been really good with him being George Burns. Yeah,
Vision
I like
all
that.
cigaring it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, in the 60s, I had the Addams Family and the Monsters like Jesse, so I thought those were funny. But 50s and 60s are not my decade, so I'm going to leave those out. Those are my honorable mentions.
Okay.
For the 70s, I had as my show that I picked was Happy Days.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums.
Ah, perfect.
Solid.
So I thought that would be fun. They could be Mr. and Mrs. Cunningham. There are a lot of extra characters you can play with there.
Pietro would be Fonzie.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff there. Plus, they had the kids, a boy and a girl, but creative license if you want. I'm a little disappointed that we came out of the 70s and Bob didn't suggest the Bob Crane show. and I honestly thought, I've got it in my notes right here, that he for sure was going with WKRP in Cincinnati because he's a big Johnny Fever fan.
WKRP in Cincinnati was on my list of people to think of. Yeah.
It's a great show.
Now with 80s, we all went with Married with Children. That's mine as well.
Wow. If
we
almost
had,
a clean sweep.
I did not think of that, and that is amazing. I mean, it's perfect.
That was my pick. I thought Alf would have been funny. I thought Growing Pains could have fit, especially since everything was the family 2-story house, living room situated most of the time. But Scott, just to tell you that not all sitcoms in the 80s were the cutesy family, I have Roseanne on my list.
Ooh, that would have been a good one.
Yes.
Nothing cutesy about that. And that would give Wanda a chance to now doesn't have to be so nice and friendly and cute housewifey anymore. And Roseanne definitely was not that. My pick, though, was Married with Children. Now, in the 90s, I had Home Improvement like Bob. I said live action King of the Hill would have been funny. Live action Family Guy would have been funny. Third Rock from the Sun would have been a lot of fun.
Oh, yes. Good choice.
Almost on my list.
The one that I actually would have picked for the 90s was King of Queens.
My eyes are getting weary. My back is getting tight. I'm sitting here in traffic on the Queensboro Bridge tonight.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Simple, married couple, living in a house. A lot of central stuff in the, neighbors popping in and out. So that one kind of fit. In the 10s, the Goldbergs.
I'm twisted up inside, but nonetheless I feel the need to say.
Oh, there you go. Very nice.
So Goldbergs was in 2013. I thought that was a lot of fun, and they could have had a lot of fun with that. I love the characters. Wanda as the Jewish mother would have been really, really funny.
Vision in his underwear on the chair all the time.
In his underwear for the entire episode. And then one that nobody spoke about, and this would have been, I think, in 2010, so it would have fallen into the same as the Goldbergs, is Raising Hope. And I don't know how many of you saw Raising Hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I used to see that.
Raising Hope is really funny, and the parents are so wheels off.
Cloris Leachman, right?
Yeah, she was in that.
Now, here's one, though, just a little bit of trivia to wrap mine up. In 2001, there was a very short-lived TV series called Raising Dad. There was a widowed father raising 2 daughters, and the daughters were Kat Dennings and Brie Larson.
Oh, wow. How funny.
Tie-ins.
Yeah, very nice.
I thought it would have been funny if WandaVision had a Two Broke Girls parody built into their sitcom setup.
Or Fresh Off the Boat. Isn't that where
Jimmy Woo.
So 70s, 80s, 90s, and 10s.
So if I add all these up, 3 of us picked something from the 60s, 4 of us picked something from the 70s, 4 of us picked something from the 80s, 5 of us picked something from the 90s, and 2 of us picked something from the 2000s, which gives us a grand total of 5 overlaps, which means Gary has won the Showcase Showdown, hitting the number on the head. 5 total overlap.
Because there was a huge range for us to pick from.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of depressed that nobody picked Faulty Towers for the 70s.
Yeah.
Too British. Oh, that would fit in with Paul Bettany just perfect.
Gary, when you mentioned if you had said right from the beginning, hey, we're just doing this for fun. We're just going to play with the sitcom format and we're going to do different years, then you would know what you're getting into and you would just, okay, let me enjoy this or not. That wasn't the story they told, but I do think we've given a lot of ideas that could have been really fun to see.
You gotta wonder how much they left on the floor, how much, I wouldn't say left on the floor, how many ideas they came up with and went, I've got 10 great ideas, we can only use 2.
They could have really taken like one episode for her to be all glitched up and for them to rapid fire like about
around.
10 different versions.
Well, I'll tell you
one
what,
episode.
though, it wouldn't take much for the folks from Funny or Die to throw together some parodies over there. They're 5 or 6 minutes each to do this would be very funny.
Yeah, that's a great
They
idea.
get a lot of views too.
I did watch a couple of videos like Gary about the show, and I did see where there actually was a 10th episode. What they ended up doing is they cut pieces of that extra episode and incorporated it into some of the other episodes to kind of bolster it up.
The big thing that they really cut, they filmed a very significant sequence that they ended up cutting the whole thing. But it was, remember when Pietro, whatever you want to call him, they were looking down into the basement and you see the purple vines.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly at that point, the kids were down there, the book was down there, and the rabbit was down there. And the rabbit had some significance that a lot of people were trying to draw to it. They shot an entire sequence of them going down in there, snooping around, trying to get the book, having to fight the rabbit because the rabbit like turns into something else.
Like a demon.
And they shot an entire sequence of all of that. And then the guy said it took away too much from the Wanda fighting, and they decided to cut the whole thing.
One of the other things that we didn't talk about, but I love the way the Vision and the Vision ended up talking.
Was that Bob? Is there a theme song that might go with that?
Oh, like Patty Duke?
But they're cousins.
Yeah.
Identical cousins. But they're cousins. Identical cousins. So yeah, I think this has been a great addition to the Marvel Universe. And once again, they ended up tying everything together. I hope we see Jimmy Woo again. You know, from considering when he was just this small guy in Ant-Man, and he ended up showing like he has his card trick now. He was able to pick his
handcuffs,
pizzazz, or whatever the magic word was. That was good.
Flourish.
Scott, if someone wants to hear from you.
Scott_Matula on the Twitter.
And hey, Bob, don't you do a couple other podcasts? Do you want to give a quick plug?
No, they're all canceled.
Okay. Very nice.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I've got Ben and Scoop and Plausible Deniability. Give that a shot. It's at Pause Deny. And mine is at Lukewarm Tallboy.
Gary?
At Travel_Cowboy on Twitter.
And you will always get the latest news and thoughts on the Cowboys from Gary. I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW. If someone wants to give us feedback, Junior, how can they?
You can reach out to us at How Many Podcasts on Twitter. Reach out to us on the YouTube channel like somebody just did. Thank you to Neil Tank Briggins for taking the time to give us his opinions on breakfast cereals. We have a Facebook page. You can reach me directly at Metzkin_Junior also.
For now, please remember to social distance. Remember to wash your hands. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Who's been messing up everything?
It's been Agatha all along.
Who's been pulling every evil string?
It's been Agatha all along.
And I killed Sparky, too.